Hello, welcome back. In this video, we're going to go through how to set up a Google Ads campaign. And throughout this exercise, we're going to be using the Bear Claw Bicycle Company website. We've been doing some SEO that's really starting to take off, so now it's time to set up a Google Ads account. The first campaign that we're going to set up is going to be just a really simple branded campaign that targets keywords like Bear Claw Bicycles, Bear Claw Bikes, BB Co Bikes, things like that. And then we're going to set up another campaign that's dedicated to that bike right there, Frank, which is a titanium fat bike. And that's pretty much all it is. You know, it's obviously a fat bike, but this is kind of the core keyword category. I'm just going to keep it really simple. So let's head back over to Google Ads. One thing I do want to point out is the account that you're going to be using. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to use my personal Gmail. And I think that's going to be a common scenario for a lot of new Google Ads advertisers out there. But if you are working on multiple Google Ads accounts, I highly recommend setting up a My Client Center or MCC. This type of dashboard or interface is a little bit more common for agencies or consultants that are managing multiple accounts. And another option too is just to create a dedicated Gmail. For instance, we could just set up like Bear Claw Bicycle Code at Gmail, and that would enable just a little bit more collaboration. Or if you have multiple individuals who are working on Google Ads, or say you want to streamline the account across analytics, ads, Google Tag Manager, things like that, having that dedicated account is a little nicer as opposed to just your personal account. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just use mine here. It's a blank slate ready to go. So go ahead and click campaigns right here. And we're just going to click into creating a new campaign. Now, if you have a brand new Gmail, you might be taken to a different interface, which shows, or it asks you what your goals are and gives you a few options. There's a link just below that says experience with Google Ads, ? Just click that link and it'll take you here. This is the route you want to go. That other option sort of compromises on some of the more advanced features that we ultimately want to take control of, which will greatly impact performance. So you want to click search. We're going to set up a search campaign. Now it's asking us some of our goals here for the campaign. Now you can choose which one makes the most sense. Ultimately, it's going to sort of take you down the same road. So just click website traffic, or at least that's the one that applies here the most. And go ahead and paste the domain name or the business website. And now we're going to get into actually setting up the account, or the first campaign rather. So we're just going to call this one bbco-branded. And this part here for networks is extremely important. So Google recommends that you also include the display network, which is not best practice. So basically what that means is the text ads that you're going to write, which we want to show up in Google search, will also show up as display ads on other websites related to what we offer. This is a very inefficient technique. I highly recommend setting up a dedicated display network if you choose to use the display network. Never combined search and display. That's just, I think everybody who's proficient with AdWords will agree that is ultimately a waste of money, even though Google will even send you this or show you this little warning here that you're missing out on a big opportunity. Don't combine the two. The other option here for including Google search partners. Now these are other search engines throughout the web that aren't quite as popular as Google, but ultimately Google suggests that you use them to widen your exposure. I, for one, just prefer to use Google search and Google search only, so I choose to deselect both of those boxes just to ensure my ads are showing up where I know they are. I mean, there are features with Google Ads that allow you to see where your ads are showing up, but personally I just prefer using the Google Search Network when I set up Google Search Ads. Locations. So Locations is a pretty nice feature, especially if you want to target a specific geographic location. In this case, we're just going to use United States, but for example's sake, I just want to show you really quick how you can leverage this feature. So because Bearclaw is located in northern Michigan, namely Traverse City, we can target by city, county, region, state. We can really narrow it in pretty good, which is great. But one feature I do kind of like to use is the radius feature, especially with like hyper local campaigns where we're just targeting like a specific region within the business's location. So we might try a radius around Traverse City, which is where Bearclaw is located, and for instance, maybe we want to make sure that we also get users who are searching up here in Northport or down here in Frankfurt. Maybe we want to widen that so we can maybe expand that to something like 35 miles. And yeah, so that would capture a pretty wide net, but still within the local confines of how or where Bearclaw serves. So just a pretty awesome little feature there if setting up a local campaign makes sense for you. For many small businesses, it's a must. So using this feature is pretty nice. So we're just going to hit cancel and just select the United States. Languages is pretty straightforward, just doing English. We're going to start off sort of small with a $20 a day budget. There's a pretty easy calculation. I think it's like 30.2 times your daily budget, which will calculate the monthly budget. Depending on how deep you want to get into that, you can assess your budget restraints. But just do standard. Accelerated delivery method is going to pretty much front load your ads early in the day so you get maximum activity. Standard is going to sort of spread it out. Standard is highly recommended, especially if you have like a limited budget. So bidding is another more important thing you need to be conscious of when setting up your Google Ads campaign. What do you want to focus on? So Google automatically suggests clicks, which is just kind of the standard. Here you can set your maximum cost per click or CPC bid. A good just kind of starting ground for this particular project, we're just going to start at $2. I chose $2 because when doing keyword research, which we'll cover in future videos, most of the keywords were suggesting a bid around $1, $1.50, $1.75, kind of in between that $1 to $2 range. So I'm going to set it at $2. This link here is what you really want to kind of leverage. So, all right. So it's asking how we want to set up our bid strategy. So maximize clicks. Obviously, that's it's going to enable us to get a little bit more activity and obviously maximize clicks, but we're going to go through our budget a little quicker. So I don't usually recommend using maximize clicks. I steer towards enhanced CPC, which will adjust your bids over time based on how well each keyword is converting. That's a nice one that's a little bit more automated and will take into consideration how well each keyword is performing. Another one that's nice is target search page location. So if we do click that, we can have this option here to have our ads appear at the top of the first results page, which is nice because we don't really want our ads showing at the bottom of the organic search results. We want to be in that top of premium ad placement, so this is a nice feature for that. However, we still don't have necessarily 100% full control over our bids. So if that's something that you want, also to maximize conversions is a fine option if you have a little bit more money to play with. But for the sake of being somewhat tight with our daily budget, we can stick with an enhanced CPC, or in this case, I'm just going to do a manual CPC, which basically means you take full control over the cost per click for each keyword. That can involve a little bit more work, just because you have to be diligent on staying up to speed on how your keywords and ad groups are performing. But once you have that set over a certain period of time and you're familiar with how certain keywords are doing, then you can flip the switch and go to something like an enhanced CPC or something like that. So I'm just going to just do manual for now. Now you can set start and end dates if your campaign has time relevancy or it expires for, let's say you're setting it up for a certain event. Audiences is an interesting feature that I don't necessarily recommend unless you have, say, like an email list. You can set up a lookalike audience with your email list or a remarketing list that you've previously set up. So you can target users who are searching Google for the keywords that you're bidding on, but you'll only be exposed to those users who are within that audience or that lookalike audience. So that can be helpful or useful. I would suggest just creating a dedicated account for that. This search thing here, if we were to type, people just interested in bikes, obviously we can narrow our audience a little bit, but this is one feature that I don't necessarily depend on and I don't think is necessarily that valuable. So I'm just going to skip it for this campaign. Now, these options here for extensions, these are some of the basic ad extensions that will show in addition to your ad copy. So you have site links, which are those links that appear in the ad. Callouts are just additional text, and then the phone number. So you can set some of this up right now if you'd like, or you can reserve this for later if you want to set these up more on an ad group, more like precision basis for each ad group. You can use these features. But because I know I'm just going to be doing a simple branded campaign for now, I'm just going to do some really top level sort of site links and callouts. So for the phone number, I'm just going to throw in the number that we have with the account. So I have a text pad open with some information already sort of populated. So I'm just going to plug in the phone number we're going to be using. I'm going to keep call reporting on, and we are going to count a conversion from calls from our ads. So we can also have this device preferred mobile. That is a good option to check, especially if your audience is a little bit more mobile centric, or maybe you're just targeting specifically mobile devices with your ads. So check that, hit save. That way you'll have your call extension already done. You can close that up. Site links. So site links can be just links like the contact form link or the contact us page, maybe an about us. In this case, I'm going to do each of the bikes that Bearclaw offers. So we're going to start here and create a new one. Final URL is for the Thunderhawk. And if we have enough characters, I'm going to add in like what the bike actually is. So Thunderhawk is essentially a gravel bike. It's actually like a titanium gravel bike, but I don't think we can fit titanium or tie. So we'll do Thunderhawk gravel bike. Save that. Let's do one more. Well, actually, we'll do two more. Or excuse me, three more. Balthazar is a carbon fat bike, which fits. Beowulf. Beowulf is a titanium mountain bike. Mountain bike can be abbreviated as MTB. So we might do something like tie. Well, maybe we can fit mountain bike. We'll see. I don't think so though. Yeah. Okay, so that fits the bill pretty well. And lastly, Frank. If you can do at least 4 site links, that's ideal, because 4 is sort of the max that will appear. But if you only want to do 2 or 3, that's fine too. Awesome. So that's our core site links that we're going to use for this campaign. And last but not least, the callouts. So callouts, at least do 2. You can do 3. 3 will actually appear in the ad. No more than that. I mean, you can add more than that, but your ad will only show 3 at a time. So we have a few of those written already. Just sort of the general premise of what type of bikes Bear Claw offers. So we'll create a call out for all-road adventure bikes. Keep in mind that we can only do 25 characters for these. Performance race bikes. Now there are some advanced options to sort of set when extensions can be scheduled. It's getting pretty advanced. I don't really see a need to do that, but if you want to play with that, you can. I think I just canceled that one there, so we'll hit performance race bikes again, and last but not least, touring plus bike packing. All right, so we have our callouts in place, and we can save and continue. Oh, actually, just in case we want to use any other extensions, you can. There are a lot of them, like location. We can sync this up with Google My Business. That's a nice feature for local advertisers or a local campaign. A few other things I want to point out is ad rotation. So this one is also important. Google can and will start to favor the best performing ad, which is fine. You can have that. You can optimize for conversion later down the road. It's currently not supported, but I will highly recommend you choose to not to optimize and to have your ads rotate indefinitely. So why do I choose that? Well, we are going to set up multiple ads and run split tests for each ad creative. So if Google is starting to do its own thing and optimize for the best performing ad, which sounds like a nice automated feature, it's actually going to sort of disrupt our split tests. So another just thing that we want to have full control over, and that's our ad rotation. So choose to not optimize and to rotate ads indefinitely, and just keep tabs and manually do your own split testing. I think that's just the best way to go, and that's just kind of standard best practice. You can set up an ad schedule, so if you wanted to just have your ads show on the weekends during a certain time, you can set that up through that feature. We're just going to skip that and just move right into creating our ad groups. All right, so we're just going to create one ad group for this branded campaign, and we can just call it pretty much the same thing as we called the campaign, BB Co branded. Now, Google will give you some keyword ideas over here. Obviously, if we were just to bid on a bike or bicycle, it's pretty broad. It's not specific enough. In fact, it's just using broad match, which down here it gives you certain match types, and we're going to talk about this here. So I've already got some keywords set up, and using sort of a combination of exact match, phrase match, and what's called broad match modifier, or modified broad match, which uses this plus symbol. So notice how I don't have anything that's just Bear Claw bikes. If I don't have any brackets or quotes or any type of way to specify the match type, Google's just going to assume it's in broad match, and it's going to show it's going to show the ad for Bear Claw bike, but it's also going to show for very similar, or I shouldn't say very similar, but what Google sees as similar search queries. So if someone were to search like um, Bear Claw bicycle reviews, or just that query, it's going to show up for that because it's going to see bike as synonymous with bicycle. And one of the best examples that I've heard in the past is if we were to bid on a keyword like red wagon. Now that's a very general keyword, but it's also specific. We would assume that that is for one of those red flyer wagons for children to play with. However, if we were to be bidding on just that keyword in broad match form, Google could show our ads for variations like burgundy Subaru wagon, which is absolutely not what we're trying to advertise. So that's just one very quick, simple example of why I do not advocate using broad match and instead use the broad match modifier here where we specify plus symbols. Basically that's saying a user's query must contain BBCO and bikes for our ads to show, which is still pretty general, but it's specific enough to the point where we only want BBCO and bikes in the query. Same thing here for Bear Claw and bicycle. So someone typed in Bear Claw bicycle company full spell. This keyword bid is going to ensure our ads show. Now exact match form, using the brackets, a user must type in Bear Claw Bicycle Co. for that to trigger our ads. However, because we're already bidding that on broad match, or modified broad, we're still capturing that query. So this is why it's good to use a combination of exact match, phrase match, which you see here in quotes, meaning those two words have to show up in a user's query combined in that phrase. So using this combination of match types will ensure that our ads show up for only very relevant queries, but still with a little bit of leeway if someone were to search a very long tail query like reviews or something like that. So that's a very simple sort of example on how I would set up the keyword bids. And we'll go through another one when we set this up for Frank, but don't use broad. I think the only time I would recommend using broad is if the keyword bids were extremely expensive. For instance, if it was $30 to $40 per click suggested CPC. In that case, you could play with using broad, and then you would just need to be very diligent about using negative keywords, which we'll get to in future videos. But in this case, just keep it very precise and use some of the more precise match types with exact match, phrase match, and broad match modifier. So we're just going to use that same default bid of $2 and just move on to creating our ads. So go ahead and click New Ad. And Google just recently revamped or added a new feature here to expanded text ads to show a third headline as well as a second description line, and it also lengthened the maximum character length of the descriptions to 90 characters as opposed to 80. So pretty big ad, a lot of real estate that you could cover. However, one thing to point out is your third headline and your second description line is not always going to show up. I think Google reserves that for very high bidding advertisers, who are willing to pay a premium to have that top ad placement and to have that third ad line show up. So again, just Google rewarding those who are willing to spend more money. So again, this is just the branded ad group targeting branded keywords here. So we're just going to take users to the home page. We don't really have any landing pages set up yet, but this will suffice. Now I have some ad creative already written. This is for our branded ads, so we're just going to go right into the most common branded sort of keyword, and that's the business's name and what it is. They're a builder of carbon and Thai bikes. Thai, just a short version of titanium. And in case our third headline does show up, we'll just have something like shop BBCO bikes online. Now, for the next example, for Frank, we can leverage these paths a little bit more strategically. This is basically a URL path that we can customize. So if we wanted to put in there like bikes, we can, but I like to keep this very natural. I mean, users are pretty smart. If they see a bunch of like capitalized keywords or things like that, it's just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of mucks it up in my opinion. So description 1, we're just going to use this line here that is previously written. BBCO crafts carbon and titanium bikes known for their versatility, resilience, and speed. And for a second headline, we're just going to use one of these down here that is kind of a variation, or just something else to add some flavor. So it looks like that one's a little too long. So let's see if I can limit it or cut it back a little bit. Well, I guess for time's sake, I'll just use this other one I have written. So one thing about writing ad copy is you have to sort of understand the tone of the business. The cool thing about Bear Claws, they have sort of this fun, sort of rad dude tone. That's why we're kind of using stuff like, this hashtag shredventure. It's kind of a common theme that, they're using on like Instagram, and words like sleigh, road, gravel, snow, mud, and everything in between. We're just really speaking to our audience here. For other projects, maybe you need to be much more professional, or a little bit more. I'm not really sure what the word is I'm looking for, but just play to the tone of the business. We're writing creative here, so you can play around, and this is just one ad of many that we're going to make. But a couple other tips when doing some ad copy, and we'll do a couple other examples in future videos as we get more into creating ad groups and doing keyword research and stuff like that. But using a verb is always good. So like shop BBCO bikes, or explore, sleigh. So we're not doing the best job right now, but again, this is just a simple branded campaign that we're sort of whipping together. So let's call that one good. Now, that's just one ad. Again, I highly recommend we create multiple versions for split testing. In fact, I always create 3 ads. Some advertisers will only create 2, but I have heard through the pipeline of Google support that by creating 3 ads, you can automatically boost your creative excellence score, which is not a score or a metric that we can see as Google advertisers, but it's something sort of in the back end that Google can see and sort of measures advertisers. So creative excellence, we're going to maximize that by creating 3 ads. That may in turn help us with our ad rank, maybe even quality score. If those terms sound foreign to you, we'll get there eventually. But I'm just going to go ahead and whip up another one real quick here. We'll just use some of the same verbiage, but slight variations. So here I kind of put in parentheses like BBCO, epic adventures await, next level Thai bike technology. Again, we're going to just keep the URL path natural with nothing. And let's see how this one fits. Okay, that one's good. So this one we're kind of doing a variation from the previous ad. BBCO combines high-end all-road performance and bike packing capabilities and raw ingenuity. And for the last one, that last one that we tried before, it didn't fit, so we're just going to put in that same description line too. So when you are setting up multiple ads, sometimes it's good to have very similar variations. So this one's pretty different from the previous ad. So if we start to see like, this ad's performing way better than that one, then that's pretty obvious. But if we see that, if we create a duplicate of this ad, but we just change a few slight things, like maybe we slip this this line up here, and maybe we want to change that, or maybe we'll just add the BBCO to that first headline. So just kind of a slight change in the first headline and the first description, and we'll save that. So we have two ads that are pretty similar with slight variation, and then one that's a little bit more unique. So that way you can sort of understand the differences in the ads being split tested, and as you go to create a new round of ads, when you assess which ads are performing best, and you're going to create a new sort of split test for that period, you can kind of understand what's working best. Again, we'll get a little bit more into the specifics around this in future videos, but that is it. That is pretty much the steps you need to take to set up just a simple first ad group and campaign. And we can just go ahead and check that out. That was just kind of a brief overview. Now, once you have this set up, you can see that the columns here offer a lot of pieces of information, some of which might not be very relevant, like ad rotation. We already know we're rotating our ads indefinitely, so we can omit that column. So I'm just going to show you here some of the different metrics I like to have in my columns. So you have these that are sort of locked in, ad group status, default CPC. I like to get rid of ad rotation. I like to have clicks, impressions, click-through rate, average CPC, cost. I don't need ad group type. I don't need active bid adjustment, but that can be helpful if you want to do bid adjustments for, say, mobile devices or desktop. We definitely want to have conversions. You can also have phone call conversions in there. I like to have cost per conversion. You can have conversion rate if you wish. I don't need that right now, but we can also do call details, attribution. There's some interesting stuff in there too. For attributes, I'm trying to think of what would be most applicable here. Again, this is just for the ad group interface. So when we actually dive into the keywords interface over here, we might want to see some different information. But for the ad group interface, we're just going to keep it simple and just do those. Now, if we do click in to this ad group, and here we can see that they want us to enter billing information, which you can do at any time, but you can still set up some campaigns and ad groups. Here you can get some information based on the status. Maybe it's telling you have like a low search volume for these keywords. That's fine, but we still want to bid on them. Maybe you're getting a warning that you have a very low quality score. Sometimes it can give you some tips on how to troubleshoot that. But here we see, like policy details as a column. Don't really need that. If we did have final URLs where we wanted to take users to specific bikes, for instance, that can be useful. But we're going to have ad groups, or rather dedicated campaigns set up for each bike. So that's not something we're going to need. But we can get rid of that. Really, I wanted to show you guys, in addition to conversions and cost per conversions, there's a couple of cool, I'm trying to think of where they're at. Performance, that's not it. Attribution, attributes, I believe it's under attributes, yes. So first paid First page bid estimate is good to know. You want your ads to show up on the first page, but more than that, you want your ads to show up in the first, either the first position or a top of page bid estimate. So these are extremely valuable that you want to engage. And I like to put them pretty much right up front so I can see, where I should be bidding. Again, this is just another nice feature of having max, or having the cost per click or max CPC done manually, like we did previously when setting this up. So if I click apply, it's not giving me any information yet, but for instance, if I was bidding on a keyword and it said, the estimated top of page bid was $1.20, I would just want to make sure that I was bidding over that. If I wanted to secure that top ad placement, I can bid closer to the first position bid, which is the first ad to show up in the search results. That might be some premium cost per click numbers to reach that, depending on the nature of the account that you're setting up. But in this case, we don't know yet, but these are both good points of information that I always recommend including in your structure of columns. So that is our first campaign. We're going to do one more, and that's going to be for Frank. Now you'll see a lot of things here like negative keywords, search terms. These are all very valuable, important things that we'll get to in future videos. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to stick to campaign building and just focusing on the best practices of that. So notice how you don't see campaigns here as an option. That's because we're just viewing this campaign right here for BBCO branded. So just click that link there for all campaigns. And we can go through that same process that we just went through, but because I know that our branded campaign and all the sort of setup features that we had previously set up in this campaign are going to be the same or pretty close to Frank, I'm just going to copy that, just Control C, click that out, and Control V to paste it. So this is kind of a little shortcut that you can use. It's going to basically duplicate that campaign, including the ad group that we just set up, but just change the name to, whoops, yikes, let's go back here, Frank, save, click into Frank. Now it's got that that BBCO branded ad group, so ad groups we can set up from scratch. So let's remove that one. Now I don't necessarily recommend doing the copy and pasting thing if you already accumulated a lot of data, because it's going to copy and paste all that data over, like for instance your clicks and impressions and all that. So just do that if you're setting it up from scratch. Otherwise you probably want to go through the initial setup process. So Frank, titanium, fat bike. Now I specify the ad group just in case we wanted to create a different ad group for Frank, something like bike packing fat bike, which is sort of what Frank is. So we might want to create a dedicated ad group for those keywords. Now the thing about setting up ad groups is you do want to be as precise as possible and only target very relevant keyword groupings. That's why we're using Frank as this example, is because titanium fat bike is the absolute core of what it is. It's not much more than that. Aside from that example of being more for like bike packing or maybe racing, so maybe we wanted to do something like fat bikes, race fat bikes, things like that. I don't know if that gets a lot of search volume, but something to think about. Okay, so we have some information already set up here for Frank. The keywords here, this is our little bidding strategy, again using that phrase match, exact match. An exact match of a long tail, fat tire bike is a common long tail, but we're still going to capture that query with this modified broad. Again, if someone used titanium fat and bike in their query, like titanium fat tire bike, this is still going to enable that to show, but Maybe we could get some slightly cheaper clicks if we target that variation with exact, so that's why I did that. And Thai is a close variation of titanium. A lot of people are searching for like titanium fat bike, titanium fat bike frame. Let's see, I did not put the plus symbol in front of bike. You might be thinking, well, why don't you just do titanium broad and fat bike as those words that must show up in exact form there, or at least semantically precise. Because I don't necessarily trust Google. If Google sees the word steel as similar enough to titanium, it might show the ads for steel fat bike, which is not what we want. So again, that's why I don't really use broad. You can use this kind of combination of broad and broad match modifier, which can be effective, but again, I'm just going to keep it very precise to start. Maybe later we can introduce some new keywords and some new bidding strategies, but we're just going to keep it simple. All right, let's create some ads for Frank. So again, we've got some stuff set up here, kind of playing around with some text. So this first line, we're just going to do titanium fat bike clean pipe Frank. So we might run into quite a few clean pipes here. We'll just have to see what it looks like. Let's go ahead and put that destination. We're taking users to Frank, of course. For that headline too, we're just going to put in the brand, Bear Claw Bicycle Co. And for a third one, Adventure Fat Bike Packing. Now with the display path, we can do something branded like Frank, in which case let's just try that. Sometimes it's nice to use keywords here. In general, it's always wise to use your keyword targets in the headline and description, or at least just the headline, just because that helps with click-through rate. It's pretty much proven that if you make sure to include the core keywords that you're targeting or bidding on in the ad copy, it's going to improve your click-through rate. So I definitely recommend that. Kind of been playing around some fun description text. Equipped to manhandle deep wilderness bikepacking rides and competitive fat bike races. Not sure how well that's going to perform, but that's why we set up a few different ads. And we'll do this more like feature-specific description too. Here you can see those site links are showing up. We're eventually going to make those more precise to Frank, because right now it's just showing the previous account-wide site links that we set up upon our initial campaign setup. The call or the phone number won't change, so that one's good. But here we have our first ad, so let's get that. So Google will let you adjust these, or it shows these as adjustable, but you can do that in the next steps. I find this kind of cumbersome right here, so we'll do that after we get our ads set up. So we have this ad group set up for Frank. Again, just using the same campaign setup as previously, but we'll want to set 2 more ads up. So there's our first one. If we hit this plus symbol, add text, it's going to show that same version, which is nice because we want that same destination URL. I did want to play with this headline, meet Frank, our Thai fat bike. Again, not 100% sure how well some of these headlines are going to work, but we'll test them. We're also going to try a double path of fat bikes, as if we have more than one, which we do, but just 2. And we'll do titanium. And we're going to try, actually we're going to keep these description lines. The only thing different in this ad is our headlines. So again, just subtle changes for this one. And again, we're going to, I think I'm just going to do Thai fat bike with no need Frank or any mention of Frank. in that line at least. And we're going to go back to bike packing adventures await, or a different version of adventure fat bike packing here. So put that in there. Try sleigh, snow, gravel, and everything in between. Titanium never looks so good. Okay, again, just going with that sort of playful tone. And then we'll do Meet Frank, the titanium fat bike that you can pedal damn near anywhere. And because that does contain a keyword and it's a little bit more succinct, I'm actually going to use that as the description 1 and reserve that iffy description 2 for that premium ad real estate that may or may not show up. But there it is. There's our 3 ads, very deep expanded text ads under review. If you do run into status issues, they give you some good insights. Maybe you used all capital letters, which you can't do, or maybe you use some verbs or some verbiage rather that was kind of against Google's guidelines. Maybe you said guaranteed to win races, or I don't know, maybe that would actually pass. But just keep tabs on the status until these are fully approved, which it doesn't take too long. Okay, so we got our ads made. We're going to go to extensions, and we're going to create some Frank specific site links. So this might be a little bit tricky. We can take users to the store. Again, this site's sort of still under construction. It's defaulting to the clothing right now, but we're going to have this set up so people can actually buy the bikes. Right now it's sort of a makeshift sort of conversion funnel, but okay, so site links, the text, we could do something like order online. It's kind of tricky if you don't have many like sub pages for a particular bike. Like if you had a certain page for specs or build and geometry, that might be stuff that you could add in the site links. In this case, we're just going to use the same URL as the destination URL for the ads, but we're going to we're just going to change the link text to something different. So we'll call it Frank's build and geometry, if that fits. In fact, we don't even need Frank's in there. Geometry. It's pretty obvious. Yeah, so again, it's a little bit tricky if you want to maximize using 4 site links, but you only have pretty much 1 page you're going to. So just a couple like other more basic options that are common is like contact us. And I think we might just try like a very keyword-centric site link. Tie fat bike frames, because we're also going to be selling Frank frames, which we will probably want to set up a dedicated ad group that just targets keywords specific to frames. But for this case, we'll just do those site links that at least are somewhat specific. They're not going to see the other site links for the other bikes. They're going to be specific to Frank. Let's do a few specific callouts. Again, I'm just going to kind of go with that same headline text or certain versions of it. Bike packing, adventures await, that's going to be a little too long. But we could do something like maybe like fat adventures await. That's kind of funny because you get it, fat PH. Haha, save that. do a couple more here. So we could even pull some of the copy that we've written. Lightweight and rugged is kind of calling out to me. And let's see if we can come up with something else here. Well, it's really good for snow. In fact, it's really common for snow. So snow fat bike. It's pretty boring, but we'll just go with that one right now. You know, we can use other ones or test some other ones in the future. But call extension is good. So we're just going to be using the callouts and the site links for this one. Let's just go back to that ad group and take a look at the ads. Those were all set. And then take a quick look at the keywords. Looking good. Alright, so guys, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you for this video. It was a bit of a long one, but hopefully you got a lot of good information there. And just a couple quick takeaways. Again, when setting up ad groups, we're trying to get as granular as possible. You know, if we wanted to set up under the Frank campaign a new ad group for frames and just target titanium fat bike frames, you know, I definitely think we'll need to create a dedicated ad group for that. And then maybe even for the main bike one, we can set a negative keyword for frames, just to make sure that that other ad group was only getting the ads triggered. That may seem a little advanced and over your head at this point, but we'll get into more specific strategies in future videos. You guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.